G'day, ZiggyD here, and welcome to my second Build of the Week build guide. Each week I put up a poll giving my subscribers the chance to vote on a build that I'll level for the following week. This week my subscribers felt like giving me a bit of a challenge, so they tasked me with creating my own two-handed sword shadow. Today I'll give you guys a bit of an explanation on how this build's going now at level 55, and also some ideas about where it can go from here. In theming this build, I wanted to create a character that was fast moving, hard hitting, and had a lightning damage focus. Skills like Double Strike, Lightning Strike, and Flicker Strike all fit the bill and work well enough with two-handed swords. So the footage you've been seeing in the background is a little bit of a cheat. I'm actually reasonably over-leveled for this content. The reason for showing it was that I wanted to use it to demonstrate one of the endgame goals of this build: permanent Blood Rage uptime and unlimited Flicker Strike spam. The way this works is that Blood Rage provides a frenzy charge on kill, and that Flicker Strike can consume these charges to bypass its cooldown period. That means as long as you can kill things within 1 or 2 Flicker Strikes, you can almost Flicker Strike endlessly. All you need is a lot of damage per hit, and high enough lifesteal and life regen to counter the chaos damage from Blood Rage. At level 55 this is not yet viable for progression, but it's something to work towards. So now I'll cut to some footage of me farming the Legend Merciless, which is more of an appropriate level for this character. As you can see, I ditched Flicker Strike spam in favour of a more reliable progression setup of Lightning Strike and Double Strike. I still use Flicker Strike occasionally for mobility, however. The Lightning Strike this shadow is using is supported by the Lesser Multiple Projectiles and Pierce support gems. These supports transform Lightning Strike from a rather poor AoE skill into one that is fairly effective. My only gripe with Lightning Strike is that it has a lot of trouble in confined spaces or when there are small obstacles on the ground. Additional supports include weapon elemental damage and added fire damage, though the latter will be switched out for added lightning damage or lightning penetration when possible. This skill does around 2000 DPS at the moment in a party setting, which is fairly impressive for this level. The primary single target ability I'm using is Double Strike. I chose Double Strike because of the way it interacts with critical strikes. If the first hit is a critical hit, then the second one is also guaranteed to be a critical hit. This means that you can very rapidly build up shock stacks and put out a lot of damage quickly. It also looks pretty cool with a two-handed sword, so there's that. For now I've supported Double Strike with Life Leech, increased critical strikes, and faster attacks. Any DPS enhancing supports are fine choices for this really, but I'd like to add in added lightning damage when I get additional links, as this will help with shock stack uptime. The DPS is comparable to my well-supported Lightning Strike, but it's less mana intensive and provides a lot of Life Leech, so it's great against bosses and rare mobs. The curse I'm using in this footage is Critical Weakness. This provides an extra chance to crit, and also a significant increase in critical damage multiplier. Combined with this, Lightning Strike and Double Strike can often one-shot mobs. When I'm tackling more difficult content, however, I switch out Critical Weakness for the Enfeeble Curse, which provides a significant decrease to incoming damage. This build is currently having some survivability issues, though with careful play and further gear improvements, I'm confident that this will be a solid endgame setup. As you can probably tell, I'm also running a lot of auras. This is thanks to the Eldritch Battery Keystone passive, which converts Energy Shield into mana. I'm currently running Clarity, Wrath, Discipline, and Grace, though I'd like to build up enough mana to also add in Vitality to assist with supporting Blood Rage. It'll take a fair bit of fine-tuning to achieve this. Additional auras that can be used include Hatred and Anger, as this build has more than enough main stat to support almost any aura at a reasonable level, and extra DPS is always nice. So now let's go ahead and take a look at how I've arranged the passive tree. So for the first 20 levels or so, I pretty much stuck to the shadow starting area. I originally came down here and got these life nodes for a bit of extra survivability, but later respec'd out of those to spend points over on the left side of the tree. As you can see, we've grabbed the strength and life nodes where we can, and also some critical hit chance nodes as well. Nullification and the Evasion Energy Shield passives provide some bonuses to Energy Shield, which converts into mana later on, and also some extra resistances, so they're nice to grab. Arcing Blows is a fantastic passive to get for any Lightning Strike build, any Lightning Strike shadow. Later on we'll probably come back and get lightning damage and shock here, which gives an increased lightning damage and 5% chance to shock. This doesn't work the same way with the critical hit chance with Double Strike, but it still gives an extra 5% chance to shock overall, which is a nice bonus. I've also come up here and just grabbed the Bloodthirst critical strike chance node, as it's quite good. From here I've come up and gotten the life from close to the witch area and pretty much head straight up into Eldritch Battery to start converting my energy shield into mana. This did provide a bit of a survivability decrease for a while, but having enough life and armor and life gear pretty much counteracts that for the most part, and that mana is sort of necessary for a well supported lightning strike. So from there we head down to the center, pretty much just straight through, and come up and get the inner force and buff effect passives here. I think these are pretty much a necessity for any Eldritch Battery build because you're supporting so many auras, and these give such a massive benefit to auras. This also allows you to run the energy shield aura, which without these and without some good energy shield passives won't actually give you a net positive increase in mana, so they're pretty much a necessity for that. From there, I've come across here, and I've gone up to the Templar area to grab some of the excellent life nodes here. I've also grabbed Body and Soul for extra armor, elemental resistances, and energy shield. The two-handed passive here is probably one of the only few things that actually defines me as a two-handed build. As you can see, this build can pretty much modify itself to any other weapon type if it likes. From there, the plan is to get Catalyze and this weapon elemental damage nodes here. Also, to come down to the Marauder area, grab some Armor Mastery, Heart of the Gladiator, Diamond Skin, and possibly Troll's Blood if we can get it. If we have any points left over from there, we'll come across and get Life Leech. In terms of defensive gear, your primary focus is armor and armor energy shield gear. However, you sort of have to take what you can get sometimes. As I've got pretty decent pure energy shield boots here, I've had to stick with these for the meantime, and I've also had to stick with some evasion energy shield gear or evasion armor gear where I could get it, basically to get the right links that I needed. However, the end goal is to get armor and armor energy shield pieces. For the main chest piece, you can probably stick to pure armor for a bit of a defensive increase if you find that you're not having any mana problems. Obviously, with the two-handed weapon, you want to go for as much physical damage and lightning damage as you can get. The way the lightning strike is, it works, it converts your damage to lightning damage, so having a high physical damage bonus is good. This sword is quite strong actually, it works very well with this build with increased critical multiplier, increased attack speed, some good elemental damage bonuses which work well with Catalyze, and a very nice physical damage bonus there. Currently my jewelry is mostly focused on defensive stats, though I've also managed to get some critical strike multiplier on my amulet there. Eventually you'd like to try and get as much crit strike chance and multiplier on your gear as possible, mostly through your jewelry there. At certain points during progression, and even at the moment, this build is fairly squishy, and that's simply because I don't have enough defensive stats on my gear. My gear isn't defensively strong enough, so that's definitely something I want to be working on. The DPS from the build really comes from the supports that you're using on your skills, and just the nature of the skills and passives that you're using, so getting pure defensive gear if you can is a very viable way to play. Finally, I'd like to give you guys some closing thoughts on my opinions of this build. This Shadow and I have had a bit of a love-hate relationship. Sometimes it'll work brilliantly and feels great to play, and then other times, like trying to progress through Lunaris Temple, it can be a nightmare to play. It feels like I'm bashing my head against the wall. It's a bit more squishy on the defensive side of things than what I usually like to play, and often I'd find myself wondering why I'm not just using a bow. The fact is, with this passive setup, this build could easily be converted to almost any weapon type and still be viable. It's essentially a lightning damage and crit focused Eldritch Battery build, so it has a fair amount of flexibility. For this reason, I'm actually a big fan of how this Shadow turned out, despite sometimes hating him. It's been a lot of fun to try and make him work, and I've learnt a lot doing so. If you'd like to vote on future Build of the Week polls, and if you'd like easy notification of when these guides and the progression videos come out, then please consider subscribing. That's it for today, I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.